The Lonely Prince. Chapter 1. An Unusual Friendship Problem. Twilight Sparkle was at Chancellor Castle, trotting down a hallway, pondering her predicament. After her help saving the Crystal Empire, as opposed to her saving it herself, with Princess Cadance now on her rightful throne after the fall of King Sombra, she was killing time before returning to Ponyville. Princess Celestia had already made it clear that Spike having ultimately saved the Crystal Empire instead of herself didn't constitute a failure on her part. However, she was having a hard time accepting that fact. No, she had to make up for that failure, and she couldn't think of a better way of doing that than by helping Princess Celestia solve problems in the capital. Friendship problems, specifically. In the past, she had made it a point to offer help with friendship problems while she was in Canterlot, because it was so much easier to deal with them while she was in town on other official business, rather than to make a special trip later. This time was no different, but it was also more urgent, as Twilight felt like she had something to prove. It still surprised her of how many ponies would bottle up a problem until invited to talk about it. In a city where nobles and otherwise wealthy elite almost outnumbered common ponies, intrigue was the rule rather than the exception. And it was clear that ponies had a hard time making friends or solving problems they had with those friends. But no, Twilight couldn't just solve any friendship problem. It had to be a problem big enough to attract Celestia's attention. A problem that, when solved, would ease the burden of her teacher. As the personal student of the princess, she was allowed special privileges, such as use of the flying chariots and the ability to give basic orders to the on-duty guards. While she was hesitant to use the power that she had, she used that privilege today. The royal guards did a good job of spreading the word that the Elements of Magic and royalty-appointed student of friendship was willing to help fix friendship problems before she returned home, with mixed results. She did help a few low-ranking royal guards with minor problems, but nothing that hit the expectations she had set for herself. At least until the request came. The request of a lifetime. The royal guard in question sounded half smug and half filled with remorse when he informed her that none other than Prince Blueblood had requested her help. Twilight had been both shocked and yet pleased. This for sure had to be the friendship problem of all friendship problems that would make up for her failure in the Crystal Empire, and might even help her mentor. So here she was, trotting down the halls towards his room, hoping to solve his friendship problem. The request didn't include any details, only that there was a problem that she could help with. She thought back to everything that she knew about him.
Okay, so Prince Blueblood is descended from a brother or sister of Princess Celestia and Princess Luna that didn't become an alicorn, and is roughly 52 generations removed from that unnamed sibling, but still blood family. The fact that Celestia treats him as a nephew instead of a distant relative beneath her notice spoke volume about her character. He was also horrible to Rarity during the Grand Galloping Gala, and I never really got to the bottom of that. Not that I've had the time to try, but I remember the gentle older colt who was only slightly bigger than me when I first started attending Princess Celestia's school for gifted unicorns.
Twilight smiled to herself as her pace slowed and she fully took in the memory of her personal interactions with Blueblood, as few as they were.
He has helped me with an awkward social situation when I first started attending the school. The nobles not understanding how a non-noble became the personal student of the princess. And I helped him learn a difficult spell that for some reason, he didn't want his aunt help learning.
Twilight's face took on a blush at a more personal memory.
And then there was that one time with just the two of us in personal tutoring with the princess. Blueblood fell asleep during a boring political lesson, and I decided that for once, I didn't care about politics and fell asleep beside him while technically cuddling him. I remember him being so soft and warm, and we just dozed the lesson away. I can vaguely remember that Princess Celestia continued the lesson, her voice lulling us to sleep, completely unfazed that the only two students were both asleep. We woke up later to find Celestia gone and the sun starting to set. I remember thanking him for being a soft pillow, and he thanked me for being a warm blanket. I had awkwardly joked that we should cuddle more often, and he had replied in an almost serious tone. That if it meant cuddling more, he'd gladly sleep through every political lecture since those were the only ones I didn't like, and could allow myself to doze often.
Twilight's blush faded as the tail end of the memory ruined the moment for her.
And then I snapped at him in my usual school is everything tone. I said, as a Prince of Equestria, these political classes are far more important to you than they are for me. We really shouldn't sleep through them in the future. Taken aback, he stiffened, but nodded in agreement. I don't think that any pony had ever reprimanded him like that before, and I felt bad for having raised my voice, but I also didn't apologize for it. Unfortunately, everything seemed to change after that. Neither of us ever fell asleep in class or tutoring again, even the political ones. But we also never cuddled again. He barely spoke to me, but made sure I saw that he was taking his studies seriously. And like a wall too big to climb over, my lack of desire to have friends allowed me to distance myself from him, with no regrets at the time. Did I miss out on something special by being the perfect student? Why are these regrets resurfacing now?
Twilight turned a corner and resigned herself to the fact that even with all the things she knew about friendship, matters of the heart were still beyond her. But despite that, deep down she knew why that memory was a sore spot for her, even if she didn't like admitting it. She never had a boyfriend. She had never been kissed. The only two stallions she had ever cuddled with were her own brother and Blue Blood. And her brother didn't count because family members could cuddle as much as they wanted to. And even that was off the table now that Shining Armor was married. Thinking about her love life, or lack thereof, was very depressing for her. She was more than simply a late bloomer. When it came to dating, she hadn't even sprouted. In the back of her mind, she thought she'd do what her mother did, and start dating, and then get married after she started her career. But, as the personal student of Princess Celestia, not to mention elements of magic, she would never have a real career. Saving Equestria was her career, even if she wanted to admit that was already working, and would probably be doing this for the rest of her life. No normal stallion would marry a national hero that faced the dangers that she did. She had friends, but she was still very alone. But not as alone as Blue Blood, who had no family, except for his two aunts, and probably fewer real friends than she did. But that didn't make a lot of sense either.
How can you have a friendship problem without friends? Or was having no friends the problem?
Her over-analytical brain had to take it a step further.
Or maybe I am the problem.
She panicked at that last thought. If she could remember that fateful encounter, then of course he did. And now that she was an expert on friendship, and yet she had never apologized for being so cross about something that was clearly meant to be a joke, or a poorly phrased offer. But surely they didn't need to sleep through class to cuddle. They could have just cuddled whenever they wanted. She doubted that Princess Celestia would have stopped them. Her pace slowed to a crawl as she approached Blue Blood's chamber door, clearly apparent that he was in there with 2 guards stationed outside the door. Was it too late? She was 12 when all that happened, but as an adult now, she could still cuddle with him and give him a genuine apology. Maybe even ask him out on a date? Would the prince date a commoner if the commoner was a pony like her that had a royally appointed title now? It was worth asking about. The worst he could say was no. She just needed the right opening. She resumed at a normal pace, and finished walking up towards the guards. She cleared her throat when she was the traditional 3 paces away.
Twilight Sparkle, personal student of Princess Celestia. I'm here to meet with Prince Blueblood, as requested.
The guard looked down at her. Miss Sparkle, you're late. That took her aback as she hedged a reply.
I wasn't aware the prince expected me at a specific time, only that he wished to see me. The guard that relayed the message wasn't very specific.
The guard narrowed his eyes. Oh, I knew I shouldn't have trusted a green recruit with an issue of such importance. Prince Blueblood has a lot of paperwork that he's trying to catch up on. Perhaps after your meeting, you can help him get organized as a favor for delaying him. She swallowed a lump in her throat.
Oh, of course. Given the prince's position, his friendship problem might contain some sensitive information relevant to the security of Equestria. Therefore, I request no interruptions. No maids or guards are enter unless summoned. Eavesdropping will be punished at the highest level, am I understood?
The guard nodded, even saluted, which Twilight rarely saw directed towards her. Of course, Miss Sparkle. You may go in now. The doors opened and Twilight walked in. The room was massive. It was easily larger than the entirety of the Golden Oak Library in Ponyville. Bookshelves lined the walls, all filled with books that covered a wide variety of subjects. Twilight arrived at Blue Blood's desk, only to find that he wasn't there. She looked around. and didn't see any trace of him. But she knew he was in here somewhere. Very unique. Never really thought about this kind of idea before. Wonder where it leads. Anywho, let's get on to our blessed donators. Top donators: Jessie Smith, Zar630, BadassWaffle, Onlyonething, Ceru, Orion, and Caladis. Magivic, Jock, Luciisu, Darkside, Rayden, Runescythe, Will, Twinkie, Luigi, Chancellor, Crust, Big Smoke, Murder Princess, LILmighty, Solar Symphony, and many more fantastic people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.